Hello beautiful people, welcome back to another Asinium Games review. Up this time we have Sekiro? Sekiro? Not sure about that one. Anyway, I'm just going to go with it. I know I'm a little late to the party with this, but whilst I haven't finished the game entirely, I've played about 35 hours and I've loved what I've played, even though I'm terrible at these kinds of games. So, when thinking about what I like in video games, I like to break it up into several different sections. Story, graphics, music, game mechanics, and value. Now for my Plague Tale review, I added an extra element, immersion. But for Sekiro I'm not going to use that, even though it's quite immersive, but rather I'm going to use the term payoff. Now this is because Sekiro is a hard game. It has a pretty steep learning curve, and one minute you can be there slaughtering dozens of men throughout some badass ninja techniques, and another some nameless prick with a spear has somehow become the hardest boss in the game. So whether it's this nameless prick with the spear or Genokiro Ashina, it's important to think about how goddamn good it feels when you defeat this nameless mini-boss that isn't really a mini-boss, but he's somehow become your archenemy. It's also pretty fantastic when you defeat Lady Butterfly or Genokiro after your 30th plus attempt. I guess. Anyway, let's get started.
In the closing years of the Sengoku era, Japan was consumed by perpetual conflict.
Now up first we have story. So, when it comes to Sekiro, story certainly isn't a selling point or a strength of the game. You play as Wolf, a shinobi. It starts off you, shinobi, whatever that means, protecting the divine heir, some magical genderless child that, for one reason or another, you have sworn to your father to protect. Now, no matter how hard you try at the start, spoiler alert, for the first 20 minutes of the game, the boss is undefeatable, even though I died in quite literally 5 seconds. But this loss is what launches you off into the rest of the game. After having your arm severed off, a strange old man gives you a prosthetic arm that looks like it's made from pubic hair, sticks and bones. Nice. Now this launches into you attempting to find your way back to the beautiful genderless child, whilst adding some attachments to your prosthetic, which makes up the core of your gameplay, but more on that later on. So there seems to be a very tenuous story. Other than very key important stuff to actually playing the game, nothing is really ever told to you straight up, mostly through references and or strange one-liners. All of a sudden you appear in some dance theatre and this scary old lady starts throwing knives at you and calling you cub, and when you eventually defeat her, your character apologizes to her? Kinky. So, the story, whilst having a cool vibe and being fun, certainly isn't super great, but they give you enough to make it so your understanding of your character's motivations are clear. Whilst I would have liked more, it's not the selling point of the game, so it's not really a huge biggie. In terms of story, I give Sekiro a 6 out of 10.
What's the matter, Stray? Nothing left to lose?
Up next, we have graphics. Sekiro does pretty great in this area, and the game looks great with a really cool Japanese art style that would normally not appeal to me. But in this dark, grim, and extremely unforgiving world, I think it works fantastically. It definitely sets the tone of the game, where one or two missteps is all it takes to lose all of your progress and find yourself back where you started. The snow effects and lighting effects are certainly beautiful, and the combination of an extremely brisk cold adds to that sense of harshness. Whilst the fire effects, particularly at night, create a luminous, dangerous and edgy overtone to the gameplay as you skulk past huts stalking a group of soldiers around a campfire. Now here are some examples of what I mean, and I think you'll agree that both parts are beautiful and atmospheric. Unlike other titles such as The Plague Tale, this game is beautiful, but not so beautiful that it can ever distract from the gameplay. I didn't find myself stopping to look at scenery or marvel at how beautiful things were. But that's not to say they weren't beautiful, it's just not flashy or particularly eye-catching like other games. In games such as this though, I think it would be a detriment, as it would pull your attention away from what's so great about Sekiro, which is the combat and stealth mechanics. In terms of graphics, I give Sekiro an 8.5 out of 10. On to audio. Once again, Sekiro does pretty fantastically. Similar to the graphics, the music complements the rest of the game. It's not hauntingly beautiful or overly anxiety-inducing, but what it does do is support the graphics and excellent combat mechanics of the game. The music is epic. It adds to the feeling that even though you're fighting this boss for the gazillionth time, it's still awe-inspiring.
My name is Kyobu Masataka Oniwa! As I breathe, you will not pass the castle gates!
In regard to atmosphere, the game does pretty well. When you're jumping from snow-laden branch to snow-laden branch, you can hear the snow falling off and hitting the ground. When you're sprinting away from enemies, the crunch your feet make in the snow. When you first start the game, it's really difficult to tell the difference between a deflection from an enemy or a perfect deflection, which, as we will discuss later, is really important. But as the game progresses, the nuance between the sounds really become clear, and it informs your brain as to the success or failure of your strategies. All in all, the game does fantastically, both in terms of its main theme, combat music, and the little nuances laden throughout the game. I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Up next we have game mechanics. There's a lot to talk about here, and this is the real meaty part of this review. Straight up, the mechanics in this game are fantastic. The combat, whilst hard to master, is super complex, intuitive, and extremely rewarding. This game was made by the same gang who created the Dark Souls games. Now, I don't have a love for Dark Souls, but I'm not sure what it is. It just doesn't really tickle my giblets. But this game has a completely different combat system. Firstly, you die twice, hence the name. When you are struck down, you can resurrect yourself once. If you can die again without getting to a shrine, which is a checkpoint, you must go back to the previous shrine. You and your enemy have a health bar and a posture bar. When the posture bar is full, you will have defenses and at the mercy of your opponent. So your major purpose in this game is to fill the posture bar, which then lets you execute your enemy. The game is all about timing. What you want is perfect deflections, which will cause posture damage to your enemy. This is done by hitting the deflection button a split second before the enemy strike hits you. There's less emphasis on dodging like in the Souls games, but more of a combination of deflecting and dodging, as obviously there are some attacks which can't be deflected and some that can't be dodged. Now when you hit that perfect deflection and then instantly skewer your enemy in one hit, it just gives a little murderous butterfly feeling. It's pretty great. Now this is usually quite doable when it's 1v1, other than the odd spear bastard, but if you're dealing with more than one enemy, things get dodgy super quick. It only takes 2 or 3 hits from an enemy to die, so you spend a lot of your time skulking around the battlefield, trying to remain undetected and picking them off one by one. The game often states that the most important thing is to win, at any cost. Now this is where your prosthetic comes in, and you can affix your weird puby bone stick arm with different stuff. A shuriken to hit enemies from afar, firecrackers to scare animals, a shield to block projectiles, and many, many more. Now this is my vibe. Honor, respect, fairness? Psh, get that shit out of here. Victory at all costs. However, when it comes to boss fights or mini-bosses, the enemies have at least 2 health bars. This means you have to break down their posture and execute them twice. Sometimes you can sneak up on them and get a sneaky stab in, which will eliminate the first health bar, but for major bosses in the game, such as Lady Butterfly or Gubu, this is impossible, meaning you have to face them head on, master your combat skills and win the day. In order to succeed in the game, you have to master both stealth skills and combat. One without the other is not enough. In terms of variety of combat, this game's great. No major boss is the same, with each introducing different mechanics. Lady Butterfly summons illusions and strikes at you from afar. Gubu rides a horse with a gigantic spear. Headless undead fill you with terror, which causes you to move slow or lose control of your character. It's all really diverse, with the major bosses all having a different feel and mechanics that you have to solve through trial and error. Now, I haven't cheesed any of the major bosses. I mean, there was one bastard on a tower with a really fucking long bloody spear, who I may have cheesed, but that was it, I swear. Now, in the end, the combat and mechanics in this game are fantastic. They're hard to master, but easy to play. It creates this really fun reward system as your eyes are glued to the movements of your enemy, trying to predict what attack they will do so you can perfectly deflect or dodge so you can get in a perfect counterattack. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and I have zero criticisms. 10 out of 10. Okay, here we go. Payoff. Now, this game is difficult. It's great, it's fun, it's beautiful, and it's infuriating. But really, what matters here is what that translates into. Do all of these things together make a rewarding payoff experience? Are the hours re-attempting a boss actually worth it? Well, that may depend on you. For me, in games like Dark Souls 3, no it wasn't. For Sekiro, it definitely is. I never at any stage felt like I wasn't improving or the mechanic was insurmountable. Incredibly frustrating, sure, but not insurmountable. Every attempt I felt myself improving, learning, growing, getting just a little closer to defeating the boss. I could feel myself getting better, and it's this kind of stuff that really makes Sekiro so fantastic. You aren't shoehorned into one technique. Sure, I mean, whatever you were doing may not be optimal, but it's your tactic, and for better or worse, you can put your nose to the grindstone and push through. There were many times where I threw away my controller, put my hands up in exasperation and gave up, only to come back the next day fresh and just do it in my first attempt. There are very few other games that are meant to be difficult like this, and then they still appeal to me. And when I picked up Sekiro, I really wasn't sure. But in terms of payoff, this game is fantastic. 10 out of 10. Now up next we have value. This game cost me about $90 in Australia off Steam, so it's roughly $70 US. Now I have 35 hours and growing. This game is great. If you enjoy games like this, or like me you weren't too sure, I recommend it hugely. This is my first time playing this sort of type of super difficult, get good game genre, and I'm not so sure the whole genre is for me really. But Sekiro certainly is, and I definitely recommend it. 90 Australian dollars for minimum 35 hours gameplay is a pretty good deal in my book, and if you like what you see and you have the money, definitely pick it up. At the very least, put it on your wish list and snag it on sale. Okay, so here we are. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is a great game. I mean, the story certainly isn't a strength, but the graphics and audio were resoundingly strong. The gameplay mechanics are where Sekiro nails it. It's amazingly fun, interactive, complex, and most of all, enjoyable. In terms of value, whilst it's not a cheap game, it's certainly worth the investment, and I'd recommend this to anyone who thinks this looks like a fun game. To summarise, the scores are story, 6 out of 10, graphics, 8.5 out of 10, audio, 9 out of 10, game mechanics, 10 out of 10, payoff, 10 out of 10, with the average overall score being 8.7 out of 10. Now, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and if you enjoyed the video, give me a like or a subscribe. If there's something you didn't like in the video or disagree with me about, comment and let me know. Anyway, that's about it from me, guys, so thanks for watching the video again, and I'll see you next time.